All right. So basically what we're going to be looking at today is primarily the Zoom tool, which is what we've decided to use for our online instructor-led training. For those of you who maybe not sure what this is and want to know a bit more, we basically wanted to create a new kind of training delivery method. We've kind of noticed over the last few years that we're not having as many live classes. A lot of them are just having trouble making it all, especially with some of our fire certification courses like FAME and PFAD. And we wanted to find a way where we can get those classes to occur outside of just having online options available. So this online instructor-led training is one of those. And the other reason why we liked it is we also believe that the instructor-led training is very valuable, and we like that, and we think that you lose that when you do an online training. So we want to be able to provide that same quality and like career-wide expertise that a live instructor has, but doing it in a way that's more modern, more virtual. That way you can have people who can attend from a larger group, larger area, which makes classes easier to make. And then we can also get rid of people having to worry about travel costs and the things associated with that, which again makes it easier because now you could potentially have smaller classes. I think we did a few of those during the beta test, and people were actually able to make the classes profitable from the chapter perspective with fewer attendees than they normally would have, because you don't have instructor travel, all that type of stuff associated with it. So those are kind of the way we're looking at it, is a new way of delivering that's modern, but still has that same advantage of an instructor. And it really doesn't have many concessions whatsoever. And we'll talk about some of those things as we go. In fact, once an instructor gets familiar with the tool, we fully expect it to be the same as a live experience, but it'll take them a few attempts before they can get used to it. But either way, we want y'all to be aware of it as well, so that y'all can support it and be a first line defense if they have questions, since obviously y'all do training sometimes on weekends and other times when we're not as instantly accessible. We want to make sure that y'all had some training on it as well. So with that said, I'm going to start sharing my screen. Is everyone able to see my video wall right now?
Yes.
Okay, this is what's technically called gallery view. You'll hear me call it the Brady Bunch mode, because that's what it kind of looks like. This is one of the primary ways for like the video cameras. So this will be, for the live training classes, they'll have the same kind of environment. There'll be the instructor, then all the attendees or the students. So right now, y'all are acting like students in this particular scenario, and I would be the instructor. And we do require all the students to have a video camera because we want to be able to pay attention to them in class. We'll need it for identity verification at the beginning. And like I said, throughout the class, the instructors will kind of look up to see if people are paying attention. They've just disappeared. It's kind of how we build in some accountability. And at the same time, most instructors like being able to see everyone to see if anyone's like lost. So it kind of bridges that gap between being online and still being able to see a classroom full of people. So it is a requirement that the students have these video cameras to be able to attend. Okay. Sorry, I got a question from Nicholas. Okay, cool. So Nicholas, you're good to go now? So that's, oh, I see Amy just took herself off. We got to, for people watching this in the future, all the yellow boxes are not problems with technology. They're Post-it notes blocking webcams. So what we're going to do is just kind of go over the interface. So I have the host interface right now, so I'll have some applications and features that you won't have on your end. So as I'm going over this, if you're like, where is this? I don't see it. That's to be expected. Since you are a student, you won't be able to see all the same things that I'll do. Some of them you will, like the chat and the members participant options, but other things like the recording and polling you won't have. So what you can see right here is the first thing we'll do is we'll look at the participants list. On your end, it's called participant. On mine, it's called managed participants. And it just has like a listing of everyone who's currently in the course. And this kind of shows them over here. There's also some options you'll have. The most important is a mute option. So I can individually mute anyone on the call or unmute them if they have technology issues. I also have the ability to mute all and unmute all. one thing we've asked instructors to do is, unless you have to leave people unmuted so they can kind of talk up like they would in a normal class. But if they have like a huge class, or if there's like audio issues, they do have the ability to mute everyone in the room. The other thing you'll see here is right next to your names, you have a more icon, and this is where I can do some administrative stuff. So on Amy, for instance, if I click on her name, I can open up a chat with her directly, which we'll look at later. I can actually rename them. So this is another issue you'll have sometimes with students initially, where when they join in, they didn't pay attention where they could put their name in. We do need them to put their full name in, and if they can't figure out how to rename themselves, you can do it for them. However, if you hover over your name, one of the options should be rename, so it is pretty simple. So you can see you do have some like little administrative options right there. I can even remove people, so if we have someone who shouldn't be in the room, I can get rid of them as well. Another kind of cool little feature of this little participant window is it has some different icons on here that you can do either on your end or that display on my end. So Nicholas earlier raised his hand because he didn't have some audio issues, and that's something you'll have on your end. So down here you see you have these little yes, no, go slower, go faster, and then like the more options. One of the options there is to raise your hand as a way of indicating you need to ask a question. Obviously, people can just speak up, but this is very useful, especially like in Nicholas's case, where they did not. There was just no way to communicate because they didn't have video and audio yet. Okay. Another cool little thing is I can't unfortunately show this to you, but if someone stops paying attention, and I'll tell you what that means in a second, there'll be this little clock icon that appears next to their name on the left. So it's just this little gray clock, and it means that they're no longer paying attention. And there is a little bit of a gotcha there. By the system's definition, if you shrink down your video window, you're not paying attention. If you're using one monitor, that's pretty simple. So you pull up another tab or pull up anything else, you're not paying attention. However, if you have dual monitors, and let's say you have your Outlook on another screen and you click on it, well, you may have the video panel on the other screen and you're still paying attention, but your Outlook is the last thing you click. So as soon as you click off the video screen or the screen sharing screen, it immediately starts assuming you're not paying attention. So it's not a guarantee, but it is a good indicator for the instructors of, are people paying attention, or are they just working at their desk, not actually following along. So we kind of let them know about that, so if they see someone with that, and like, hey, could you please click on your video window? It's showing that you're not paying attention right now. So kind of lets them know that they can't just work on other stuff. Any questions on the participant screen? All right. So the next thing we'll look at is the chat. So I already have mine open. If you don't, there's a little chat icon right here that you can open up. And there's two ways you can chat with people. By default, you see right here in the to menu, when you first open it up, it'll be on everyone. So you can have like a group chat with everyone in the room. So right now I'll send a message, hello all, and you should all get that message. Whereas earlier, y'all hadn't seen the conversation I had with Nicholas because that was done privately. So in this to menu, I can select right here, select an individual and just send them a private message and have a conversation with them. So it allows you kind of like ask during like exercise, stuff like that. You can answer questions and things of that nature, or if someone's having troubleshooting issues, you can contact them directly using this chat menu. It's also useful for students if they want to chat with each other during class, like, hey, I missed that last part. Could you tell me what they said, or something along those lines. So it gives them an ability to chat with each other instead of having to like discuss it with the whole room. Okay. Any questions on the group chat? All right. Then the next thing we'll take a look at is the screen sharing option. So right here you see this big green box that says screen share. I think I can do it while I'm screen sharing. So if I click on it right now, you'll see it pulls up this little window. And I should double check, y'all all can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have different things you can share. Like you could share just an individual application. So these are all the things I have open. You could share any of your desktops. So I have 3 right now. However, what I normally suggest is just share a whole desktop. If you share a single app, it's really easy to forget what they can and can't see. So we always recommend doing an entire desktop, which is what I'm doing right now. So once you select that, you just click share screen and they can see everything. So like you're doing right now, I'm sharing my desktop and you can see everything I'm doing. Okay. All right, so the other thing you can do when you're sharing screen is you have this annotation mode. Let me find it real quick. Trying to find my applets. Where are they? Oh, here it is. So this is the little tools menu that you have, and one of the things you can do in the tools menu is click annotate, and this will actually let you like draw on the screen. And what I suggest people do is actually pull up like a blank notepad. And you can use this as like a whiteboard. So for people, like I know for me personally, when I train, I love to use a whiteboard, and I know we have a lot of instructors the same way. So now you can like give yourself a virtual whiteboard that you can draw on. And you have this little draw option right here. You select like the squiggly line, and you actually draw on the board. So doing stuff like that. You also have this cool spotlight feature. So if you have people who are addicted to a laser pointer, they can actually use the laser pointer instead of their mouse cursor. This can be useful because the mouse cursor is kind of just ubiquitous. It's just that white little cursor is easily lost. By doing the spotlight mode, it makes it a lot easier to see what's going on, and they can scroll through the slides a lot easier that way. Then the other thing they have, like they can do like text. So if you want to put actual text on the screen, you can do that as well and write notes. I've seen people do this before, like where they actually write into the slide decks. And obviously with the new PDF slides shows that we have, you can't type into the slides, but with this tool you could type on them, so that gives them that same kind of functionality of what they were doing before, but in a more virtualized way. So they have all these tools available to them. One little gotcha, so since y'all will be acting like a support sometimes, if they call you saying that they can't click on anything or like nothing's working and they think it's a Zoom tool, what's very common, if you're in draw mode, you see how you can see my cursor is now a little marker. Well, I can't click on certain things now because it's no longer a mouse cursor, it's now a pencil. So anytime they're done drawing on the screen, they either need to deactivate it by going into mouse mode, like right here. So now I'm back to mouse mode, or they need to exit out of the notation screen entirely so that they can control their screen again. But that's a real common issue to find yourself getting into. Even every now and again, I'll forget I'm in a notation mode and get frustrated why something's not working or I can't click on something. And then when you're done with notating, you just go to clear all drawings, and then you can just click the X to go back to normal mode. Okay. Any questions on that feature? All right. Now, one thing I do want to show, just because we still have some people who haven't had exposure to it, I want to show the new PDF format I mentioned. Let me open up a course real quick. So for those who haven't seen it, we are moving away from using PowerPoint, and we're now using PDFs. Functionality-wise, these should function exactly like the traditional PowerPoints for all like intents and purposes. So for instance, this is the main screen here, and like this is where they used to have the course map they can click on. It's all still clickable. So I can click on the section and go there. I have the ability to return to the course map at the end. There's links that'll run like videos and all that type of stuff. And if they have like clickers or anything like that they want to use, that all that stuff will work. So it's actually set up so that like when they scroll their mouse wheel or they click on an arrow key, it just goes page to page to page. So it does work very much the same. There's two things that we often get people who aren't familiar with it yet asking about. The first is they want to go into full screen so it looks like a PowerPoint. And what we've been telling people is make sure that your instructors have Adobe PDF installed, because we can't tell them how any other PDF viewer functions. But in Adobe PDF, if you go to View and then go to full screen mode, it looks just like a PowerPoint. And then the other thing that we get is every now and again, someone will have a setting in their system set up to where it's always in scroll mode. And obvious, this is pretty not ideal for someone who's doing a slideshow. And that's one of the ways that PDF works. I have it set by default to do it where it goes a page at a time, but some people can have their PDF settings such that it will override that. So if that happens, all they have to do is go to View, Page Display, and then go back to Single Page View, and then it'll work. And I said those are two common issues that I have seen happen. Both of them are pretty simple to overcome. Okay. The last issue I'm hoping is going to be resolved here today, actually, is we've had a lot of issues with instructors calling us and saying that none of the links work, none of the videos work, things of that nature. Well, the reason for that is we have all the files currently in a zip file, and if they don't extract all the files and then run them, then none of the links will work, because if you open up a file from a zip file, it only extracted that one file, not any of the other files or videos or any of that. So that has happened very, very commonly. So if you get instructors calling saying that none of the links are working, or you hear people complain about that, let them know that they need to extract the files. That said, I'm actually about to roll out today, we found like an auto extract zip file tool. So I'm actually going to be replacing all of the zip files we have currently with an auto extractor that should solve that issue. So it'll make it a little bit easier so they don't have to have all this tech knowledge of how to unzip something. They'll just be able to click a link. It'll automatically extract it and actually put a link on their desktop even so that they can run it. So that should streamline that and make it a lot easier for some of those instructors who may not be as familiar with some of this technology. Okay, any questions on this? All right. So then the last thing we have is this poll thing I want to talk about. This is one that is one of those more advanced tools that's kind of optional right now. We're interested to see how people use it. So what they can do is kind of create like polling questions on the fly if they really wanted. So they click polls here, and you'll see right now I don't have any polls. If I wanted to create one, I just click add a question, and it'll take me to an online thing where I can do it. If I already have some polls, this button won't exist, so I'll have to click the edit button. But either way, it's going to take me to this screen here, which is the poll creation screen within the Zoom tool. So this is actually the administrative side that we'll take a deeper look at in a second. And this is the area where they can create polls. So like if they're just on the screen, you see that you have not created any polls yet, you can click add, and you can actually create questions like, can everyone hear me? And I can put yes or no. And then we'll put a title up here, so this is audio. And once I've done that, you can add multiple questions. So if they wanted to create like a pop quiz, they could have multiple questions in the same little poll, and they would have to answer all of them. But for our purposes, obviously, we just need the one question, so we'll just click Save. Okay. And I'm going to create one more. Click Add. What is 1 plus 1? So now I have 2 of them. So now that I've created these polls, and if you're frantically writing right now or worried about this, don't worry, we do have this documented. for the instructors and for y'all. So in the manuals I've already given the instructors, and the ones I'll be giving you after this training, it does have these polling steps in them, since it is one of the more complicated things to set up. So now that I've created those polls, though, I can go back into the Zoom tool. And now when I click on this same poll tool, you'll see that now I have some questions here. So it defaults to the first question in the list, but I actually click this little pull-down menu, and I can select from which poll I want to do. So we'll do the Can Everyone Hear Me? And I'll click Launch Polling. So all of y'all should have got a poll pop up on your screen right now where you can click yes or no. Feel free to do so if you want. Cool, I got a few. Oh, there we go. So once you're done getting a poll from everyone, as an instructor, I'll click In Polling, and then if I want to share it with the group, I can click Share Results, and then they can see them. So right now, obviously, you can see the results because I've set it up that way, but by default, this screen would be hidden until I click Share Results, and then everyone could see it. And so now that I've done that, I'll click Stop Share Results, and I can close out the poll screen. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. Then there's one other thing I want to show y'all. Let me pull this up. And it looks like it logged me out. So 1 second here while I relog back into the learning portal.
Matt, I have a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
What you're showing us right now is really what the instructors will be doing, right?
Correct. But it's possible y'all might use them as well. Say again? Yeah. Yeah, so the whole intent of showing y'all is so that if they have questions, you'll have some familiarity. During the beta, that's one of the things we had from the people that were doing it at the chapter side. They wanted to know more because their instructors are asking, or one of us was in a meeting, because for a while there, it was just me who was fielding questions. So we wanted to make sure that we got plenty of people trained up on it so that there's a group of people who can answer questions on this, not just like one person, which, like I said, was the case during the beta. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to show, and this is probably the biggest difference to the online instructor-led training that we want to make sure that everyone aware of. So if you've been kind of drifting off a little bit, now's the time to kind of pay attention again. So with these online instructor-led training classes, we've created new templates for the online courses. And with them, and I'll show you one, so we'll do AIS. We actually have both attendance tracking, and we're now going to be doing quizzes and even a practice exam. So some of this has existed previously. So the gatekeeper quizzes and the practice final exams were actually part of our online courses. And we've had a lot of people asking for these type of things in the past, and just everywhere, both instructors and students who wanted practice materials. So we decided to build those into the instructor online courses. So you will actually now, with each module, the instructors will be able to have them come into the learning portal and take a quiz. And then also at the end, if they want, they have a practice exam. None of this stuff is mandatory. It's all just there as a resource. But for anyone who wants that additional practice before they go take their finals or take their real exam, it's all available. So I'll repeat that again. None of the quizzes and none of the practice final exam are required. They're strictly there for practice before they go and take the real exam. Okay. So that's just kind of a nice little thing that we think we've added. The bigger thing, and this is going to be the big change part, is these attendance surveys. So with the online instructor-led training, one of the biggest issues was how do we make sure we know who attended each day? So in live classes, you would actually fill out a sign-in sheet. Well, that doesn't really work well when you're doing everything online and virtually. So this means on each day, they'll actually have a little survey they go into, and they'll say, are you here today? And they say true. A little bit, just like tidbit for you, it doesn't matter whether they say true or false, we'll give them credit. So if they can't read, don't worry, they'll still get credit for the day as long as they take the survey and fill it out. That's really all we're looking for, is to make sure that they acknowledge that they were here. And then when they finish it, it's actually going to require them to log in to be able to verify it. So this is how we get the signature. They're going to be using an e-signature, using their login and password to the learning portal. And then when they submit that, that's where you see this little orange dot right here. That means I actually did log in and verify my attendance on day 2, but I didn't on day 1, is what we see here. Nothing is preventing them from doing it in the past or in the future. So it is kind of up to the instructor just to make sure to inform them, just do for today. Or if an instructor has someone who does miss, make sure to let us know. That way we don't have someone who kind of falls through the cracks. So the big thing that this will mean is that this means you're going to have to let us know that a class is occurring before it occurs, because we're going to have to create these online courses in our portal so that you'll be able to have them on day 1 so they can come in and verify their attendance. And I know that's been a change, but for some people that's not that big a change, because a lot of people will let us know in advance, but we know that sometimes you have these last minute classes that come up, or they make it the last minute, and sometimes we don't know until like the day of, because you didn't know till the day before. So basically what that means is, in order to do these online classes, you have to let us know well in advance so that we can create the course and have it available. So even if you're not sure, but you're near the wire, go ahead and let us know, and we can go ahead and create it, and then we can go from there. But please make sure you let us know in advance, because if it comes day 1, they will not be able to verify and get credit for attendance if they don't have this course created. Okay? Any questions on that part? I said that's probably the biggest, most drastic change that this is going to be from the administrative perspective.
Yes, I have a question. On the quizzes and practice exam, how long do they have access to that?
I think we have it set up for 6 months, so it's the same length of time that they would have to take the physical exam. It's the way I've set it up, because once they finish the course, they're supposed to have 6 months to take the exam, and I set it up to be that same time frame.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is especially good if someone decides to not take the exam immediately or even quickly. They'll at least have these materials to go back and refresh on if they decide to wait 2 months before they take their exam. Or 5.5 months. Okay. Any other questions on this? All right. Shrink that down. Actually, just log out. Okay. So the next thing we'll take a look at is the administrative side of things. So this is the part, again, where we're getting more into the meat of the stuff that applies to y'all. So I've created this handy Zoom administrator guide that I'll be sending out. It may not be today, maybe on Monday, because I'm also going to post a video of this for people who didn't attend, but I'll be getting this to you early next week for sure. And it has all the details for setting up and initializing a Zoom account. So some of you already have them. If you don't, this will be useful to get it up and off the ground. So within this guide, we have the big one here is common settings. So one of the things we really want to make sure of is that if you have instructors that are coming from different states or work with multiple chapters, or they work with us on some classes and y'all on some, they all have the same interface. So anytime they come into a Zoom tool, they know that it's going to be the same tools and experience that I've trained them on and that they've used elsewhere. And that's what this common settings will do. It'll take you through some steps in your account to configure each of these settings to make sure that they match certain standards. If you find something in there that you like, that you want to turn on or off that we don't do, let us know, because if it's something that is useful, then it's something that we can have everyone do. But otherwise, we want to really try to keep these accounts all very, very consistent amongst each other. And I guess another thing I do realize, I did have a question in the last class about who has these accounts. So we are expecting the chapters themselves to each have their own Zoom account that they'll use and for their training classes. And then we as NTS will have some that we utilize for any of the NTS trainings that we will do. So you will need to get one of these if you want to deliver OILT OILT trainings. It's pretty inexpensive. It's about $15 a month, cheaper if you sign up for an annual contract. And that gives you access to 100 participants in a single meeting at a time. The only thing that might come up is if you have like trainings that overlap each other, then you're going to actually need multiple accounts. So keep that in mind as well. If you have classes that you never have more than one at a time, you're fine. But if you have classes that might be on the same days, then you'll need 2 separate accounts to manage that. Okay. Now, also in here, and we won't go, and I'll show you this in a second, is how you create a meeting. So there's steps in here to create single day and multi-day classes so that they work again the same way across everyone's organization. And more importantly, for multi-day classes, we've defined these steps so that it has the same URL every day for the students. And that way they don't have to get a different link each day. So especially on these multi-days, make sure to pay attention to these steps because it'll make it a much more simpler and consistent set of steps for the actual students themselves. And I'll show you it, but again, don't worry about writing this down because you'll have the manual itself. But to create one, whenever you log into Zoom, it should automatically take you to this main account screen. If for some reason it doesn't, or you start navigating around and get lost, you can always click on My Account to get to this main administrative screen. And then under My Meetings, this is where you'll create new ones. So you can see right here, here's the one we're attending right now, Zoom chapter training. And then to schedule a new one, just click schedule a new meeting. You enter the name of it. So like test meeting. When you want it to occur. So we'll say we want it to start Monday at 1 p.m. Okay. And it's going to be a 4-hour course. Do it like that. And then for recurring, you'll click recurring meeting here. And I'm actually following my own steps here because I want to make sure I do this right. So we want to do recurrent daily, and we want to say repeat every one day, and you want to say end after and then number of occurrences here. So this is how many days the course is. So if I have a 3-day course, I'd put 3 here and select after. And so now what it's going to do is it's going to reoccur this same training class every single day for 3 days in a row. And by doing it this way, it'll make sure that, like I said, it has that same URL every single time they join the class. Then there's just a few things down here. One thing we always do is like enable join before host. That way people can actually join the meeting before anyone's there. That's obviously an important thing to have checked as well. So if I click save here, it now created my course. And one thing to pay attention here, this URL is what you email people. So as soon as you create that course for the OILT, copy this down and send that out to all the students because that's how they're going to connect on the day of training. They'll just click that link just like I had sent y'all and they'll connect right to the course. So that same way you connected today, the same experience that they'll have, but this is where I got that URL from, is right here.
So Matt, does the system create that URL for us or we have to create it?
It creates it for you. So okay. Whenever I click save, it just dynamically created that.
Got it.
And then once I've done that, so if I go back to the My Meetings tab again now, you can see it has a 3-day training now for our test meeting. So it's on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at 1 o'clock p.m. And it shows what date it's occurring and all that. You'll see the meeting ID again here. That's part of that URL. That URL has a new number in it. So if you ever want to double check you sent out the right one, you can do that by looking at that 9-digit number at the end of the URL and making sure it matches here. If you want to get that URL again, you can. You just click on the meeting and there it is. So if you forgot it or forgot to write it down, you can always get access to it again right there from the My Meeting screen. Now, the other thing is, and this is more on the instructor side, make sure the instructors know that they need to log in to your Zoom account. So that means whenever you assign an instructor, you'll need to give them the login and password for your Zoom account so that they can access this on the day of training. because this is where they're going to go to start the actual meeting. They will not use the link like the students do. They have to log in here. So that is one of the biggest differences. On day of training as an instructor, I log into the Zoom account using the credentials that you, the chapters, have. And then you'll click on your training day, you'll click the start button, or if someone's already in the meeting, like you see here, it'll say join, but that's how they actually initiate the training class. And then for like my multi-day class, it actually is smart enough to not let me pick the wrong day. It'll make me pick the first day first, and then on the next day, it'll just, this one will disappear and it'll just be the 7th that's available. Okay, but that is one of the things. Make sure your instructors have your account info, and if for some reason they can't control things or they don't have the host controls, it's probably because they forgot to log in and start the class that way.
I have another question.
Go ahead.
Okay, and I'm used to doing my classes, scheduling them a year in advance for the whole upcoming year. But so, and I'm trying to understand this. Am I going to set up one of these classes and expect people to sign up for it? Or do I wait till a student calls me and says, I want to do an instructor-led online class?
It's up to y'all on how you want to do that. But yes, you could schedule these out. So I know for us, we had already put them out there on our page during the beta to trial them out so people could buy them and sign up for them. And we had them scheduled, and you could do that as far in advance as you want. However, if you want to wait until you have people contact you, you can do it that way as well. So if you want to strictly use online instructor-led training for some of the single client accounts or things of that nature, it's completely up to you how you want to work that. It's as flexible as you want. Now, the one thing I do want to make sure to distinguish is that when you schedule a meeting on this screen, it is in no way linked to selling it. It's just creating the URL to access it. So if you do want to sell it, make sure whatever process you have today to put that out on your website and get it sold is still there, because that's not going to change. This is actually an additional step that you'll have to do for OILTs versus what you would do in the past for a live training class.
And
I'm sorry, if I could chime in for just a second here. If you just let me know if you want to offer one and you want it to be sold on the NTS website as well, just let me know and we can set those up just like your instructor classes as well. We just specify that they're virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And they can go through that same registration process like they go through now.
Okay, so if I can I put that URL number on my training schedule that's on my website, and then they would just click to it and go automatically?
I probably wouldn't advise doing that because anyone could access it then.
Okay.
So remember how I mentioned earlier, if someone's in the class that's not supposed to, you can kick them out. If you did it that way, you'd probably get a lot of people showing up that weren't supposed to be there because they just see the link.
Okay.
Yeah, that link should only be given to people who have registered as part of the registration process.
Gotcha.
And I have a question. Are we paying the instructors at the same rate for the online training as we would in person?
As far as the pricing, I'm not involved in that so much, but as far as I know, we're still paying them at the same rate.
Okay.
I know, like I said, go ahead.
It's also like say I have a level 1 and it's 3 days. So they will be doing that level 1 on Friday all day, Saturday, Sunday. So it's not spaced out or anything like that.
Well, I guess what's the question on that? I missed that.
I don't know. I guess I'm just a little confused, but say I have a classroom class, my instructor is taking off work and he is there all 3 days. So this works the same way. He's got to take off work on Friday and be at his computer, 8 to 5 or whenever the class is.
That's correct. So that the expectation is that when they're training, they're taking off and this is what they're doing.
Okay.
Now that said, one of the other advantages of this training, and no one's done this yet, but we have someone looking at it, is doing after hours training. So maybe doing something that starts at 6 o'clock and goes to 11. So you could have instructors do things after hours and maybe make the class go over 6 days instead of 3 days and just do 4 hours each day. So there are some flexibility there where you could have instructors do it outside of normal work hours, so they don't have to take days off. But either way, the assumption is that when they're doing this training, this is what they're doing, is the training during that time slot, and only that.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. But other than that, it's the same way where they could just do a traditional weekend class using this tool. And we actually did do that. We had someone do a weekend class. Okay. Any other questions on this part? Because obviously this is probably the more meat and potatoes part of it for y'all. All right. And again, other than that stuff we've covered in here, I would be hesitant to play around with any of these other tools. You're obviously free to. They're your accounts, but we can't promise what they will do. So just be aware of that this is the things we've covered should be all you need. Any of the other features there we're not currently utilizing, but if you see something that you want to use, send me an email and I can look into it. So you're like, hey, I was looking here and there's some feature called XYZ. Does that do this? Because that would be extremely useful. Let me know about it. We'll test it out. And if it does turn out to do what you want, then we can always integrate that. But again, so that we can make sure that everything is consistent or we don't have any issues, that would be the way we would recommend handling any features or things that you see that look interesting. All right. So that's really the bulk of it. That's all we have to cover. Miranda, did you have any other stuff on your end you wanted to bring up concerning these?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we couldn't hear you previously, so everything
Okay.
you said was lost.
No, I don't have anything to add. Just if anybody has any questions for me, as far as the setup goes, we'll still do a lot of the technical setup in the ops department. It'll just be you guys managing and maintaining the Zoom account. So when it comes to the schedule, like I said before, the schedule will not change. You still have the option of using the NTS website as a avenue to sell these classes as well. So, and we anticipate that it'll really help with a lot of the cancellations that we've seen with the instructor-led classes. So far, it's been a really good avenue to hold smaller classes because you don't have the travel and expense for the instructors. So,
Can I ask one more question?
Go right ahead.
yes, ma'am.
All right. I do a lot of training, so I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Has this ever been done other than a beta with the instructor? Have you had any students go through it yet?
Yes, we did a beta run. I think we did 4 classes, if I remember correctly. And I think we've had 2 additional classes that were done primarily by the Louisiana chapter. And there may have been one other from a different chapter, I can't remember, that was also involved in the beta testing, independent of our beta. So yeah, we've had live classes of varying sizes from, I think one was as small as 3, one was as big as I think 9. So we've had, yeah, a pretty wide-ranging experience with real students and real instructors.
I'm just trying to figure out if I should go ahead and maybe, like for my 2019 schedule, go ahead and put in a AIS class, online and whatever this is called, online instructor, and just see what happens. Or should I kind of just wait and see who contacts me?
Yeah, and that's actually, we did that ourselves. So when we opened up our OILT classes for beta, we had, one of them we had some people already signed up for and we switched it because otherwise it was going to have to be canceled. But the other ones we just put on there and we had people register for them like normal. So yeah, if you just want to put them out there and see if people select them, that's definitely an option available and one that we use personally.
And if I have to cancel, then it's no big deal.
Exactly. And the idea here is we had one with Louisiana where they did that and it was one under what they would normally require to make. And they did the numbers and like, you know what, we can still make money off this. We're going to go ahead and have it. So that's another nice thing. If you just put it out there and see who signs up, you can always wait till that near that time for deciding if you're going to have to cancel this or have it, see if you can make this viable. And like I said, they were surprised that they were able to make that class viable, where normally with instructor travel it wouldn't be.
Okay, and then one other question is there some kind of checklist or something that we can provide the student of what they have to have in order to do this type of class, or is that a dumb question? I mean, do they already know what?
What we've been doing is including some verbiage in the actual courses when they're put up for sale that lets them know that basically that they need a webcam and they need a microphone and internet access to be able to attend. So we do have some verbiage we're already building into these online instructor-led trainings. So that's what we're doing to let them know, but there's really not much that they need. They just have to have a computer, mic, and video camera, and that's pretty much the extent of it.
So we don't have to send out books to them?
Well, for that person, yeah, we are still sending out books, just like all that's still the same as with the live course.
So does NTS mail the book to the individual student, or am I responsible for that?
I know that's something that's up for discussion, but as far as what I've heard, it's going to be the same as what it's been in the past as far as who's responsible for it. So that, if I remember correctly, that was going to be the same. The only thing that's going to be different now is instead of sending it to maybe like one location, you'll now be sending it to individuals. I believe, and please double check with if you have real questions with Michelle, she can say for sure. But I think that was one thing where they were saying that make sure that whatever you're charging for delivery takes that into account, that now you're going to have to ship to individuals, not necessarily to a single location like you have in the past.
Right, and just to piggyback off of that, Matt, we already resolved this actually. We did it 2 different ways. So we had a class where we actually turned on the shipping. I can't remember which chapter it was, but she was kind of under the wire deadline-wise with shipping books, and she had so much interest in the virtual class that students were still coming in a couple of days before the class, and she didn't want to cut it off. So she said, well, what can we do? And I said, well, why don't we just leave the product up for sale, and I'll just cut the shipping on. So we cut the shipping on, and students were overnighting books to themselves. So, you know, that's definitely an option too. When we build your course on the website, we can cut the shipping on if you would prefer it that way, because it is a lot easier than having the book shipped to yourself and then you shipping the books to all these different locations. And some chapters prefer it that way, but you have both options.
Yeah. And it also means some people I know actually keep inventory on hand for books. This would avoid that, or avoid having to, like, when we do a course change, you still have a few that you lose it on. So yeah, you do have that option of using our shipping.
And just to go back, Penny, you talked about what did they need for the virtual course. So what we did for the NTS beta courses is we actually send them a class confirmation letting them know that the class is on, and, you know, confirming the date. It has the join URL in it, and it also has some additional information like you'll need these 4 things in order to attend. So if you want, I can actually send you a copy of the confirmation that I send out for the NTS classes as a template, and you can kind of make your own, or you can see what our students get when they sign up for an NTS virtual class.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Miranda, can I get that as well?
Yes, ma'am. Is that
Yes.
Amy?
Yes, that's Amy.
And Danya too, please.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. What are your thoughts on making the class either online virtual or in the classroom all at the same time? Can you do both?
We had some interest in that at one point. We haven't tried it. There's some unique hurdles with doing it that way. The big one, the instructor can't move because they have to stay in front of a monitor. So for the people that are there in the live class with the instructor, that might be difficult. We're not necessarily opposed to it at all. It's just one of those things where there might be some unique training hurdles for the instructor that they'll need to be aware of. Like the biggest one is they need to make sure that their focus is to deliver it like they would an online class, so that they're not like getting up and writing on a whiteboard and people like, I can't see it. It's all got to be done through the virtual. But there's nothing to say they can't be in a physical room with people. It just needs to make sure that everything gets filtered back through the virtual.
Okay.
And then I'm going to assume that we also give you access to our individual state Zoom accounts so that you can input the course and the student credentials.
Well, no, all that, the actual creating of the training, all that's all done on your end. So when I showed you earlier how to create a course, that's really all there is to it on the Zoom side. So we won't need access to that. You'll just create your own classes. And as far as the student credentials go, that's where in the past when they've registered, they get their registration email sent to them. That's where you would send them the URL that I showed you earlier. So there's nothing that we need as far as the students are or any access we need to your Zoom account.
Okay.
However, Danya, after the fact, after you've had a class, this is one of the things that doesn't change is that roster that you would send, and that'll allow my team to process, here's everyone that attended this class that's going to PSI. So that gives my team the blueprint to say, okay, all these people are ready for testing. So, and you can send that after class if you would like. So.
And that's separate from the sign-in sheets, correct, Miranda?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, I know some people have sent in like the sign-in sheets in the past as a roster. So now these are two separate things now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they're familiar with both of those.
Okay.
The only thing that you're eliminating is the sign-in sheets because they're doing the attendance online. But you'll still send the roster, and we'll create the profile in our learning management system. Once they take their exam, well, first off, we'll upload them for the exam and PSI. If they're in Mississippi or Tennessee, they'll go to ProctorU. We'll monitor when they schedule that exam. Once we get the results back, we'll still process all of that through the learning management system, and they'll still have access for the certificate through the learning management system. So that one roster will do all of that.
I got one more question. So, now we order our books and we pay $65 for those, and then we pay whatever it is, $85 for the testing. Do we still pay you that, or how's
yes, ma'am. Those fees have not changed.
Okay. So you will just bill us from the roster, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. And the preference is with the billing is that you always send in the class reconciliation penny. And that's kind of just quality control for my department. So you never get a surprise on your billing because you created your own class reconciliation. And all I do is submit that reconciliation to our accounting department and say, here's the reconciliation from Penny. And that's it. Now, we do have some chapters that they don't do the reconciliation. And then I have to go in and unfortunately, I have to try to figure out who was there, if there was a paper, if there was a CBT. So, and unfortunately, that causes a lot of errors in the billing. So you always want to be in control of your class reconciliation and what your chapter is being billed for based off of who was in your class and what actually occurred.
Okay.
Because nobody will know better than the executive director who attended their class.
Matt, is the booklet you're sending going to be like something we print off, or you're mailing it to us?
It's going to be that PDF I was showing you earlier. So it'll be this here.
Okay.
And I'll see if I can't wrap that up with the template email Miranda's sending, so we can probably just package that all together.
Okay.
And Danya, I saw that you had that question earlier, but it sounds like that was the same question you asked over the phone. I just want to
Yes.
double check that was answered.
So it's actually the instructor that will come with the materials for the class then. At the time and the place.
Say again now?
It's the instructor himself who will have the materials for the class.
Oh, you mean like the slides and the PowerPoint and the manual
Correct.
for themselves?
Correct.
Yes. So, and we've already did that. So that, yeah, they'll have their own slide deck. They'll have their own manual if they need one. And then so they'll have all that themselves. So the only thing they'll need from you is the login credentials to your Zoom account so they can start the meeting.
Very good. Easy enough.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a hope. And once it changes, it shouldn't be any harder, just a little different, maybe a little bit easier in some areas, but there'll definitely be a few changes and learning curves as you get used to it here initially.
And you sent us the information on how to get a logged account, right? I think you did, but
Get the Zoom account?
the Zoom account.
Yeah, I mean, as far as getting the Zoom account it's just going to the Zoom website and saying sign up now and buying it. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, that's really all there is to it. The lowest level account is all you have to get. I think it's called the Pro account. It's $15 a month. Just go there, buy that, and you're ready to go. That's all there is to it. And then that's when the guide I'm sending you comes in. Is once you buy it, then my guide will show you how to configure it.
All righty.
All right. If there's not any other questions, we'll wrap it up. But I want to do one last check. Does anyone else have questions?
I don't know, but I'm sure I will.
All right. Feel free to pass them along when they come up. And I said, if we don't get all that information to you today, and maybe Monday, because it takes a while for these recordings to get wrapped up and sent to me. So I'm gonna want to send like an email with everything. So here's where the recording and here's all the files. So if it's not today, we'll have it to you on Monday.
I do have one more question. Do all our instructors know they need to go through this training, or have mine? I don't even know.
As far as if they have, I have the list of who should attend the live class. I can verify it that way. But if they've done it through the web portal, I don't know that off the top of my head. I'd have to look it up. But they have been notified. So we sent it out to all 64 of our instructors. They're aware of it. A good chunk of them attended. I think we had like 23 or something that attended. And most of the ones that are active training on a regular basis were there. So we should be fine. And then like I said, they've all been sent an email and registered for an online training with that video. So if they weren't able to attend the live training, they can get it at their leisure. So they are aware that they need to do it if they want to. If they just were waiting to hear from you to see if y'all were going to even do it, then that'd be the only reason they might not have done it at this point.
And Penny, I can send you, just from what we have so far and who's already been trained on the Zoom process, when we get off the call, I can send you a list of what Tennessee instructors specifically have already completed the training.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. Well, this video will be recorded. So if you want to watch it again, it'll be available, and we'll be sending that out along with all the files we talked about already. If you have any other questions, feel free to pass them along. Otherwise, thank you for attending, and we hope that this new training format ends up working out well for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Thank you.
All
Y'all
right.
have a good weekend.
Yep. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
We just close out, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, bye. Thanks.